Welcome to Install from Heap, Episode 15, a Netrunner podcast from Rattlebox Games about jank, deck building, and cyberpunk nonsense. I'm Brendan Riley. Today on Install from Heap, in Frantic Coding, we're going to talk about my recent Red Meat deck. In Casting Call, we're going to talk about the famed hacker Kevin Mitnick. Our new Hactivist Meeting section is going to challenge listeners to come up with a deck that makes the corp make hard decisions. And finally, in Exploratory Romp, we're going to look at the card's social engineering. Stick around. Exchange of information. Well, it's been a good week, or a good couple weeks. I've had a lot of fun playing Netrunner, and since the last time that I recorded, we had the Worlds tournament. So congratulations to all the people who played at Worlds, particularly Wilfie Horig, the winner, and the podcaster from Run Last Click. Well done, sir. Thanks to all of the people who made so much effort to produce really cool content. Code Marvelous did some neat stuff. The FFG folks. Yeah, lots of really good content from the World Championship meet. It was nice for those of us who didn't get to go to be able to see all that stuff. So congratulations there. I want to say hi to a few people, Anthony Pearson and Jake Rubio, who have both been participating quite a bit on the stimhack forums for Install from Heap. Thanks for chatting with us, folks. Both of you actually stopped in to say hello on Jinteki as well, which is fun to say hello to you there. Hopefully we'll get to play at some point soon. Reddit user IronShield185 gave me some really interesting comments about the show that I appreciate and I'm taking into account. I appreciate all of you who are listening and reaching out. It's really helpful for somebody doing a show like this where you're kind of alone and just kind of sending out in the ether to see that people are actually listening. Although the numbers on the website that show it being downloaded, I guess it shows that it's at least in people's feeds, but it's nice to hear that people actually play the podcast after they download it. So great to hear from you, all of you. So I also have decided to try to start participating a little bit more in the online options for Netrunner play. I don't know if I'm even going to get over to my local meetup this month. My Tuesday nights have been absolutely bonkers, and so my chance of getting over there to play has been really rough. I am supposed to next Wednesday. I'm going to go to the downtown Chicago Bar Runner event and hopefully get to play with a few people from the Chicago City meta. That'll be fun. But I'm going to participate in both the Stimhack League, where I'm sure I'm going to get royally trounced, and also the Fighting Walloons Core 2.0 League, where I'll also probably get royally trounced, but maybe, I guess, with only Core 2.0 cards, so that'll be good. So those look like they will both be fun. Looking forward to that. So if you're in either of those leagues, hopefully we'll get to play. Again, Wombat929 on Jinteki, and most things Netrunner. Frantic Coding. So this month I've been working on, since the last time we chatted, I've been working on a deck that I'm calling Red Meat. Basically, it's built around the idea that when people play against Jinteki, they generally expect to hit a lot of net damage, and so I've basically stuck as much meat damage as I can into a net damage deck. And I used, so it's an egg infusion deck built around one of two win conditions. Win condition 1, the ideal one, is to build up a big remote that's annoying to get through, hopefully with Kugo or other cards that are gonna do a little net damage ping as you go along, and then at the bottom a couple of Prysecs and a Junebug with some advancement counters on it. And then I would use one of two ways to force a runner into that, which would be a Whirlpool, the classic maneuver, in which I would bring the Whirlpool on the runner and then bounce them onto that server and then run them down into the Junebug. Or I also put in Labyrinthine Servers, which if I can get one of those scored, gives me two power counters that do the same thing, that force the runner to finish the run. They can't jack out. And then you can run them into the Junebug. And I've gotten a couple wins that way. But I also put into the deck 2 hard-hitting news and 2 boom, which I have had one of those work. It's hard, though, because the runners end up seeing one or the other and they figure out something's up. In part because the Jinteki money is so crappy that I end up having to use Celebrity Gift, and then it's sort of like, well, do I play Celebrity Gift and only show them 2 cards? Or what? It's not great, but it's been fun, and I have won a number of games. In fact, there's some breach domes in there. I don't have any snares. I went for Prysec instead of snare, and in order to get snares in, I would have to dump some of the ice, and with egg infusion, you want to have plenty of ice, and it's only 18 ice two of which are traps, the whirlpools that'll disappear after you use them. So it hasn't been great, but it's been fun. It actually has won a few games, and people find it rough to play. I went with a big agenda suite rather than many, so it's only 7 agendas. It's 3 labyrinthine servers, 3 obokatas, and 1 philotic entanglement. So the runners only have to steal 3 to win, but it's a rough 3 to get. So that's Red Meat. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it. I put a link to the list in the show notes on rattleboxgames.com, and I will try to link there from the various places that we're showing up. So take a look at the Red Meat deck and let me know what you think. Also, if you've been experimenting with decks that involve both net and meat damage, what do you think works best? How do you make it happen? I look forward to hearing from you. Casting call. One of the comments that I got on stimhack, I think Anthony Pearson, although apologies if it wasn't you, Anthony, and to whomever it was that did suggest this, suggesting ideas for other segments from the show. And so I've decided to do a new one based on that idea called Casting Call. The idea of the Casting Call segment is to look at characters from Netrunner, particularly runners, but also officers from the Corps and other characters, and see where they're drawing on real life events to create Netrunner content. And I decided to start with Kevin Mitnick. Kevin Mitnick is perhaps the most famous hacker. He came of age in the 70s and 80s and made his bones doing things like bypassing the punch card system used on the Los Angeles bus system. And he broke into quite a few computer accounts and was widely hunted for a while and arrested. And the story of his hunt and arrest has been made into films and books, all sorts of things. I'm pretty sure that the beginning sequence of the movie Hackers, in which Johnny Lee Miller's character is released from prison but not allowed to use any computers, is based on Kevin Mitnick. So here's that.
His computer virus crashed 1,507 systems, including Wall Street trading systems, single-handedly, causing a 7-point
Kevin
drop
Mitnick, obviously famous hacker, kind of a shaper character in that he's not really in it for the malicious access. He's in it because he thinks it should be good to access things. And so I was thinking about what are a couple bits of Netrunner that come from this. Probably the main one is a card called social engineering, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But social engineering was the main way that Kevin Mitnick made his access, and he sort of set the stage for hackers who get access to things by tricking people rather than by tricking computers. That people are the weakest part of any computer system. And so if you can trick them with a bottle of wine or just by talking to them, then you can often make your way into networks in ways that you shouldn't be able to. So Kevin Mitnick made the idea of social engineering as a hacking tool popular. But so I wanted to point to a couple other characters that seem Kevin Mitnick-like. The first one is Alexa Belsky. She's an asset, so she's a corp character who can move cards from HQ into R&D. And then, so basically, you trash her to dump a bunch of cards out of HQ into R&D, and then the runner has to pay in order to keep you from shuffling them in. So if you are flooded, you can do this, and then the runner has to pay money to keep cards in your hand, but they might not even get to keep the agendas in. So it's it's meant to be a good way to tax them. I have to say I've never seen them used that way. The flavor text on it is, she used to work for me at my chop shop. Now she makes more money than I do. McPherson. I looked it up. McPherson isn't a character that we've seen anywhere else. But it sounds like Alexa Belsky is somebody who used to be a runner and now is a corp. Works for the corporations. And that's what happened with Kevin Mitnick. In his later life, he became a security analyst and runs a company designed to help other companies be better at security. Which of course leads me to the other obvious Kevin Mitnick analog, which would be Sunny LeBeau. Sunny LeBeau is a security specialist, right? Her day job is actually doing security for the corpse. But at night she's a runner, and she's using the access that she already has to do bad things. And then finally, the third person I wanted to point to was Smoke. Anthony actually suggested Smoke as somebody who's interesting there, right? Smoke is the person who does daily casts. She's a well-known public runner. And so Mitnick became a kind of celebrity hacker. And so I thought Elle was a good analog for that. I think we'll probably talk about Elle again later. Her interest in magic obviously overlaps with other things in our culture, so don't be surprised if she shows up again. But I thought for Kevin Mitnick, the world's most famous hacker, Alexa Belsky, Sonny LeBeau, and Smoke kind of represent aspects of his character as they appear in Netrunner, as does the card Social Engineering. So if you have ideas for other people to examine in the casting call, I'd be interested to hear them. As always, the forums in stimhack are probably the best place to go, but Board Game Geek I post, or you could head over to the Rattlebox Games website as well. Hactivist Meeting. After the Chiefs Lee discussion that we had in the last episode, we got a nice discussion going on stimhack about how to make Chiefs Lee work. Lots of really good ideas there, some interesting decks, which I confess I haven't tried. There was one deck that involved using Chiefs Lee, but the mechanisms it would use to play were so foreign to the way that I play that I couldn't figure out how I would do it. But I have played my deck a couple more times and never gotten it to work. So maybe that one is the better one. But one of the things that came out of that is this idea that it might be a nice kind of give and take from the audience of the podcast to work with me on these ideas. So instead of me telling you each week or each 2 weeks the stuff I've been working on, instead what I'm going to do is offer up a challenge or a suggestion, and then in the forums on stimhack as part of the install from heap thread, I'd encourage listeners to come in and post up their best ideas about how to make use of this notion, this sort of jank combination that I'm suggesting, and then we'll see where we can go with that. So I thought today, in honor of the Kevin Mitnick discussion, we would look at social engineering. In particular, the idea of social engineering tied to the notion of making the corporation make choices.
Where is the poison? The battle of wits has begun. It ends when you decide and we both drink and find out who is right and who is dead.
But it's so simple. All I have to do is divine from what I know of you. Are you the sort of man who would put the poison into his own goblet or his enemies? Now, a clever man would put the poison into his own goblet, because he would know that only a great fool would reach for what he was given. I'm not a great fool, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of you. But you must have known I was not a great fool. You would have counted on it, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of me.
You've made your decision then?
Not remotely.
So social engineering, you choose an unread piece of ice, and you're going to gain credits equal to its res cost if the corp reses it that turn. Right, so this seems like it might combo well with some of those D-res decks that were really in vogue before rotation, are not so much anymore since corrupt corporation. Oh, there was a card where you would get a credit every time someone resed ice, and it's escaping me now. It was corporate insider or something like that.
Future Brendan here. The card I was looking for is a criminal resource called Compromised Employee. It costs 2 credits. It had 1 recurring credit to be used during traces, and it says gain 1 credit whenever the corp reses a piece of ice. This card rotated out with rotation.
This seems like it would match up well with that, right? Forcing the corp. It's 2 credits. So when you play it, you force the corp to either give you the same amount of money they'd pay to res it, or let you run by it without resing it. Could also then, I guess, play a second card that's cutlery, which would make it even harder for them to choose. Or not. It's about making them make difficult choices. And so I was thinking about what other cards in the card pool make the corporation make difficult choices when the runner is playing. And how would you build a deck around that? So it seems to me like the place to start, obviously, is the ID. And the best ID to start with in terms of making the corp make difficult choices is going to be Steve Cambridge, the master grifter. Because, of course, it says the first time each turn that you make a successful run on HQ, you may choose 2 cards in your heap if able. The corp removes 1 from the game. The other is added to your grip. So you get to constantly force the corp to choose between cards that you're getting back. The other card that I really see as having potential this way would be Los, because again, Los gets money when the corp does something. When the corp reses ice, that's when Los gets money. So again, you're forcing the corp to make these choices that help you. But so there were a couple other cards that I thought would be interesting to think about in a kind of make the corporation choose deck. The obvious one, which got a lot of play at Worlds, information sifting. Information sifting forces the corp to divide the cards in HQ into 2 piles, and then the runner accesses the whole pile, one or the other of the whole piles. Now, there's a couple interesting things about that. One of the piles could have 0 cards in it. So you could say, my hand has a lot of dangerous stuff. You probably don't want to access it and put them all in one. Or you could divide them up. I did learn something interesting about this. So when you're accessing cards in HQ, you access them one at a time, like in legwork, when doing a legwork or something like that. So it's important if you're doing information sifting that you don't just flip the cards over from the stack that you take. What you should do is shuffle it up and look at them one at a time, because the order of access matters for things like deciding if you're going to trash or things like taking damage. So you could, if you're in a serious circumstance, you could get a game loss or some sort of loss because you weren't paying attention to that order. So it's important to think about that. So information sifting is obviously one where you're making the corp make uncomfortable choices. In terms of the jankier stuff, I thought of a card that I've always wanted to use. I've never run it in a deck, but I really want to, and that's Push Your Luck. So Push Your Luck says secretly spend any number of credits. It's a 2-cost event. Criminal. The corp guesses if you spend an even or odd amount. Reveal spent credits. If the corp guessed incorrectly, gain credits equal to twice the amount spent. So this card seems stupid. You're spending some large amount of money. The corp guesses correctly, you lose all that money you spent, or you can double your money. But, oh man, it's such a neat idea.
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss?
Sir?
The most you ever lost on a coin toss?
I don't know. I couldn't say.
Call it.
Call it.
Yes.
For what?
Just call it.
Well, we need to know what we're calling it for here.
You need to call it. I can't call it for you. Well, it wouldn't be fair.
I didn't put nothing up.
Yes, you did. You've been putting it up your whole life. You just didn't know it.
So I was thinking about what's a situation you could be in where you have a bunch of money and then you want to have either a lot more money or not as much. Like, you want a lot more money, but it won't hurt you too much to have not as much. I was thinking one combination that might work nicely would be Theophilus Bagbiter. So Theophilus Bagbiter is a resource that when you install it, you lose all the credits in your credit pool. And then your maximum hand size is equal to the number of credits in your credit pool. So you need to have some way to get money right away after you install it, or else you have to discard all your cards. But I was thinking about this as a potential combo turn. So let's say you have a decent amount of money, 10 or 15 credits or something, and you want to make a big amount of money. And you have Theophilus Bagbiter in hand, and say 3 other cards. You ended your turn with 5 cards. You have Push Your Luck, Theophilus Bagbiter, and 3 other cards. So at the beginning of your turn, you play Push Your Luck. Costs you 2 credits. Let's say you started with 15. You're down to 13. Now you secretly spend some amount of that. That leaves at least 3 on the table. So it would leave 3 or 4. And you don't obviously show. The corp doesn't need to know you're leaving 3 or 4, but you would leave 3 or 4. You spend the rest. If you succeed, now you have enough money to say break into servers or do whatever you want to do with that lot of money. That's always good. If you fail, now you have, say, 3 credits left, and you're on click 2. So click 2, you pay 3 to install Theophilus Bagbiter. You're now down to 0 credits, but you lost it anyway, so it's not as big a deal. And then you could magnum opus twice, or if you had a bank job installed, you could run and get your bank job money, or whatever your plan is to get money back with those last 2 clicks. The point was, you put the corp in a situation where if they win, you aren't hurt that badly because you have this other thing you wanted to do anyway. So that only works if you have a deck built around the idea that Theophilus Bagbiter will help you. But it seems like Push Your Luck would be one of those opportunities to really make a lot of money. But I've never seen anyone use it because it seems so uneven. It's just kind of random. Do you win or lose the game based on how well you did there? So my challenge for you for our Hactivist meeting this next fortnight is to think about what other cards can you put in your deck that challenge the corporation to make difficult decisions, and how can we build as a group an effective janktastic deck around these difficulties. In particular, I really want the deck to have social engineering and Push Your Luck. Maybe one or the other, but ideally both. Steve Cambridge or not, I'm happy to discuss it. I think it would be fun to see if we can get that to work. All right, Hactivist Meeting. Convene! Exploratory Romp. Social engineering. Social engineering is a shaper event. It's a priority, meaning you have to play it as your first click, and that's what it says at the beginning of the card. It costs 2 credits to play. The illustration is by Ralph Beisner, and it shows a runner. I feel like I'm supposed to know who that is. A runner with a distinctive scar on his face. I kind of want to think it's Gabe, but his arm does not appear to be robotic. Bribing somebody who looks like they work for a corp with a bottle of wine, presumably to get into whatever server or building they're wanting to get into. The art is pretty cartoony for Netrunner standards. It's not out of line with the other characters we see, but something about the look of the two characters feels kind of plastic. Maybe these are both supposed to be corp clones. Or androids. It's hard for me to tell. The card text says, choose an unresed piece of ice. If the corp reses that piece of ice this turn, gain credits equal to its res cost. This is an effective piece of ice or a piece of tech that you would put in a de-res deck where you're challenging the corp to res ice all the time. You could also put it in as the first of a two-part combo where the second card you're going to play is Emergency Shutdown, where you're now adding to the corp's pain if they don't res the ice, because they're going to get, or if they res the ice, they're going to get the money from you. You're going to get the money from them. If they don't res the ice, it's gone. So that might be a good challenge as well. In terms of the theme, bribing somebody with a bottle of wine is okay. I guess we'll always have wine in the future. That's fine. The art is not my favorite. This cartoony style is not as effective for me as some of the other slightly more realistic styles, or perhaps more dramatic styles. I mean, I think if you look at cards like Mr. Stone or Chief Slee, the characters don't look significantly more realistic, but I feel like they're more fitting with the world. These two characters feel a little cartoony for my taste. Overall, it's pretty good. I feel like the social engineering bit might have worked better through a network. The idea of just offering a bribe of wine isn't really the idea of social engineering. Social engineering is supposed to be tricking people into helping you, and here it feels like he's just bribing her. So that part's not great either. I think it's a neat card. I'm interested in playing it, and hopefully the decks we work on this month will do that. Yeah, I'll give it a B, a solid B in terms of flavor, because it fits the flavor of its name. The art is okay in terms of what it's depicting, but it's not my favorite drawing. So B minus, I think, for the look and feel of social engineering. Au revoir. Well, that wraps up Install from Heap episode 15. I'm calling from Microsoft. If you have suggestions for future topics or comments on the show, I'd love to hear them. You can send email to Brendan at rattleboxgames or tweet to rattleboxgames. You can also visit our website, rattleboxgames.com, to subscribe to our newsletter or follow the link to our forums on Board Game Geek, where my username is Wombat929. We also discuss the show in the stimhack forums in a thread called Install from Heap. I'd always enjoy losing a game of Netrunner to you on jinteki.net, where my username is also Wombat929. I'm easiest to find through the dedicated neural net casual play group. So if you look for that thread on stimhack, you can find it and join us there. See you next time. But until then, remember, when all your best cards end up in the trash, you can always install from Heap. Today's media clips were from
The Princess Bride, No Country for Old Men, and Hackers.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.